Full disclosure, everyone, I was not able to get my hands on the new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, but my good friend Sofian Bey was, and he very kindly shot the video that you're about to see. So let's dive into the S-Class and see what Sofian thinks that I would think of the new S-Class.
Hey everybody, today I'm out here in Westerly, Rhode Island with the all-new 2021 Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Now before we go any further, some of you may be confused because, as you can see, yes, I am Sofian from Redline Reviews. Sadly, Alex couldn't make this program, so I'm doing him a little favor by filming a first drive video for his channel. If you guys haven't seen my video on this car, be sure to click on the link in the description, of course, after you watch Alex's take on the all-new 7th generation Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Now, for nearly 50 years, the S-Class has been known as the gold standard in the executive large European luxury space. In fact, when a new version comes out, every other manufacturer tends to stand up and take notice because this is not only a benchmark, it is also a best-selling model. Now, this is now in its 7th generation. It's known internally as the W223. The old one was the W222. That was last redesigned in 2014. Now, let's start, of course, with the styling of this new S-Class, because if you guys have seen some of Alex's other videos on newer Mercedes products, you're going to find a lot of family design cues here in the front end. You can see the headlights are a little bit skinnier this year. This is the company's multi-beam full LED headlights. You have LED low and high beams, LED turn signals, LED daytime running lights. Upper end models will have swiveling adaptive headlights with automatic high beams. We do not get some of the technologies that you have in Europe where the headlights will actually project something on the road. That is not street legal here in America just yet. Now, this particular one that I'm showing you is the executive line model, which means it has more of a luxury oriented theme. The grille, of course, is slightly larger this year. There's a lot more chrome on the front end. You have those vertical slats in the grille which allow it to, showcase how wide the new S-Class is. You have the classic hood ornament, of course, front and center, which this is the only Mercedes-Benz model to have the floating three-pointed star that reminds you again you're driving a special version. And down here in the lower fascia, there's a lot more chrome. If you guys don't like the chrome, Mercedes also offers an AMG line, which will basically black out the chrome and give you a slightly sportier looking grille. At 208.6 inches long, the S-Class is now 1.3 inches longer versus the previous generation, and this is among the longer vehicles in the segment. In fact, Mercedes only sells the S-Class in the long wheelbase version, which means its wheelbase at 126.8 inches long is also around 2 inches longer than the previous generation. This is a big car. In fact, if you were going to compare it size-wise, this should be a little bit longer than the BMW 7 Series and the Audi A8. This is roughly the same size as something like a Ford Expedition or Lincoln Navigator and a Cadillac Escalade, the short wheelbase versions. Now, this particular one that I'm showing you, I mentioned earlier, is the executive line, so we have a lot more chrome. The wheels on this particular model are also the 20-inch Y-spoke wheels. These wheels are wrapped in 255 wide rubber. I like the finish on I think the wheels are a good size. Mercedes will also offer a 19, 20, or a 21-inch wheel. The Airmatic air suspension in this car also gives it a really nice ride quality on rough roads, even with the 20-inch wheels. And like so many other Mercedes models, there's a lot of safety features in this car. In fact, Mercedes is introducing a couple of new safety features, such as the ability for the car to sense a side collision. It'll actually raise the car around 3.2 inches to allow most of the energy to be absorbed in the rocker panels as opposed to the doors. This particular one here also has a panoramic sunroof, which again, you kind of expect that in this segment. And a couple of new features that Mercedes has introduced. There are now touch-sensitive door handles, and they're also flush mounted. So when the door handles, or when the car is locked, the doors will actually be flush against the body. When you come up to the car with the key fob, the door handles pop out, and it's very Tesla Model S. In the way the door handles pop in and out. Mercedes says they've extensively tested that so they'll work reliably even in cold weather. Now, Alex is very much known for his trunk comfort index, and I'm not quite as tall as Alex, but I will say that the trunk has a good amount of room back here for a couple of bodies. Now, Mercedes says you get around 19 cubic feet of space, which is pretty generous. However, keep in mind, everybody in America tends to buy SUVs. The seats don't fold down in a 60-40 manner. It just has kind of like a ski pass-through, and the subwoofer over here does take up some trunk space in the actual trunk. Now, closing this, let's talk about the styling of the new S-Class, because if you guys like what you see on the new CLS class, the taillights look pretty identical. It kind of has this triangular shape. They almost have like a 3D effect to the full LED design. There's this chrome strip that runs across the entire tailgate area, and this model here is the S580, which means it has the 4-liter twin turbocharged V8. There are some somewhat visible exhaust tips, although the exhaust tips are just trim pieces in the lower bumper. But overall, let me know what you think about the styling of this vehicle. I think it still looks stately and elegant, but I'm really excited to see the AMG models. Now, historically, the S-Class has always offered a huge choice of engines. Now, for the all-new 7th generation model, Mercedes is only launching it with 2 engines for now. The base engine is the S500, which means it has a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6. It's also boosted by a mild hybrid system, and it also has an electric compressor, which means it's also supercharged. That motor makes 429 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. This is the model that Mercedes expects to be the volume in the S-Class family. It's the S580, which means you have a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8, also supplemented by their EQ Boost mild hybrid technology that adds 21 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque in certain conditions. It doesn't actually add that power to the engine, they are separate. Now, the engine itself makes 496 horsepower and 514 pound-feet of torque. So those numbers are excellent, nearly 500 horsepower in a non-AMG version. And the big news this year is 4MATIC all-wheel drive is now standard. All S-Class models will use a 9-speed automatic transmission. Mercedes says you'll get to 60 in this model in around 4.4 seconds. It's rated to get around 17 in the city, 25 on the highway. Premium gas, of course, is required. And as this one sits, it weighs in at around 4,700 pounds. Now, in terms of the front seat comfort, I would easily rate these seats a 10 out of 10, which is what you'd expect from something like a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. The seats adjust in like 20 different ways. There's even a pillow here on the actual seat headrest, on both headrests and on the backrest. The seats, or the pillow actually adjusts up and down. The seat headrests themselves, they come forward and back electrically, and these seats are the upgraded Napa brown leather seats. They're heated and cooled, and they also offer a massage feature. The one new feature about this car as well are these touch-sensitive buttons here for the seat controls. You can see the actual control doesn't actually move. It sits in place, but it just measures how much force you're giving it in terms of a touch, and it starts to move the seat forward and back, or it can adjust the bolsters, the seat thigh extender. It's an interesting design feature along with these touch-sensitive buttons. I'm still not entirely sure I like it. I'm still getting used to it. I much preferred the actual hard buttons that Mercedes used to put in the old S-Class. Now, the real beauty about the S-Class is the back seat, and this particular one that I'm showing you has about $10,000 worth of upgrades to the rear seat, including a rear seat package, a rear seat executive package, and a rear seat entertainment package. As you can see, this is approaching Maybach levels of luxury, and this is really where I'm going to want to spend most of my time, because look at these headrests. They come with pillows back here, and they're also kind of adjustable. These pillow headrests are a little bit more comfortable for me versus the front seats. I mean, you could basically take a nap back here. In fact, in terms of the space, Mercedes increased the legroom on this new version to around 43 inches. That's about 1.5 inches more than the previous generation. Not that the previous generation was already cramped, but this is really spacious. And keep in mind, there's a Maybach version of this car that's also going to be coming that has an extra 8 inches of overall length, so even more space in the rear. Now, let's talk a little about the technology in here, because there is a lot. Basically, there are 3 screens back here, so there's technically more screens in the back than in the front. You obviously see the 2 massive screens right here. These are a touch screen. This is the MBUX system, but it also comes with this amazing little pop-out tablet right here where you can remotely control the left or the right screen, you know, depending on which one you want to use. And this right here looks like it came from Apple, honestly. It also has its own little area right here you can charge it. The screens themselves, they basically are the exact same thing that you get in the front of the vehicle. It's the MBUX system. You can control things like the radio, the GPS. You can control the massaging seat function. These seats back here are heated and cooled and massaging. And there's even a feature here where you can basically push the front seat out of the way, and there's an ottoman on this particular side. For some reason, this one right here decided to stop working. It's an early production model. But other than that, there are a couple of new technologies in here. First of all, there are rear seat airbags back here. That's right, there's an airbag right here in the seat back that comes out in a collision. Mercedes actually couldn't tell me how many airbags are in this car, but it's probably something that I'd want to be in if I was in a collision because of all the safety features in here and all the room, all the luxury. You have a wireless phone charging pad back here, which is the first time that I've seen in this particular segment. This is optional, of course. You have 2 USB-C ports. The only thing that's missing really is a refrigerator with a bunch of champagne flutes. You're gonna have to buy the Maybach version if you guys want that. Now, once you're inside the new S-Class, in typical Mercedes-Benz fashion, this is an interior that will simply wow you. I especially love the color combination of this one with the brown, the two-tone. You have a lot of premium materials as you'd expect. I mean, the dash you can see is all leather stitched. This is actual real stitching. There are new designs for the front seat air vents, where you have these rectangular shapes. They're also trimmed in real metal, which is really nice. You have this piano black plastic trim here, which has these kind of flowing horizontal lines that kind of accentuate itself into the door panels. It all just looks very elegant and very stately. There's also a new interactive ambient lighting system in here. Mercedes actually calls it active ambient light. Whenever you touch things like, for example, if I increase the temperature, you can see the color changes, and it lets me know on this side that I've increased it. It'll do the same thing on the passenger side. So these are all very nice details that you're going to particularly notice at night with this car, and you can also change out the ambient lighting. Mercedes offers several different themes depending on how frisky you want to get with the actual interior lighting in this car. Now, in terms of the rest of the technology, you can see there are two massive 12-inch displays. There's a 12.3-inch display here for the instrument panel. This is also a 3D effect instrument panel, which it's really hard to see on camera. It uses cameras here that watch your face that actually project a 3D image, kind of like if you were wearing those, glasses that you used to have to wear at the movie theaters. You can turn off the 3D effect by pushing this little button here on the top left-hand corner of the screen. But other than that, it makes this look a lot more futuristic. There's also an augmented reality head-up display in the windshield, which allows information to kind of project almost 30 feet out, and it makes it look like the entire windshield is a screen. It looks really cool when you're actually driving the car. Now, over here in the center stack, you can see this is the latest version of the MBUX. This is their next generation. As you can see, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It measures 12.8 inches, and this is an OLED display. So the resolution is crystal clear. It almost looks like a tablet or an iPad in the screen. It has this new portrait style as opposed to the landscape style. Mercedes calls this a waterfall design. You can see a lot of piano black plastic. This does start to show fingerprints on the screen if you really start touching this thing. The system itself is relatively easy to use. It does take some of a learning curve to kind of figure out how to get everything to work. And I also noticed that the touch response could be a little bit sharper at times. This does include over-the-air updates, so I'm hoping Mercedes will make improvements to that. You can see there's the embedded GPS, which has very nice looking graphics. You can see it's a little bit slower to respond there than some of the competing systems from Audi and BMW perhaps. Always go back to the home screen there, and you can also use the touch sensitive button on the steering wheel. The steering wheel itself is a tilt and telescoping wheel design. It's a heated wheel. It's the new steering wheel that we saw off of the E-Class Mercedes with lots of piano black plastic trim. I like the thick rim. It has really high quality leather. It's got paddle shifters behind it on the wheel, and you have these new aluminum style turn signal stalks, which look really nice. The whole car just kind of has a futuristic vibe to it. When I put the car into reverse, you can see there's the full 360 camera with really high resolution graphics. I wouldn't expect anything less from Mercedes-Benz. It also has the ability to automatically parallel park and perpendicular park itself. So that's all kind of features that you expect, especially when you're paying this kind of money. Now over here on the center console, you can see there's a wireless phone charger. There's two USB-C charging ports. You have your cup holders, a little bit more storage over here. This will also close off to hide any of your valuables. And you can see there's a nice padded armrest here. This could be a little bit deeper. It's a pretty shallow, center console storage. I wanted it to be a little bit larger so you could put stuff in there, a little more stuff in there. But I have no complaints with the seats. I also love the panoramic sunroof and the headliner material, which is the same suede material that you find in other luxury vehicles. But overall, the interior of this car feels roomy. It feels really, really advanced. It also is a little overwhelming. I would have to spend a little more time with this car to really start playing with all the tech to see how it works in your everyday life. So now it's time to get behind the wheel of the new Mercedes-Benz S580, and this is the V8 model, which Mercedes says is the volume seller. They're predicting it to be the volume seller, at least until the other engines come out. Remember, there's going to be a plug-in hybrid with the 6-cylinder, and then there's going to be, supposedly, according to the rumor mill, two AMG versions, a 63 and a 73. But this is the model that has almost 500 horsepower, 496, 516 pound-feet of torque. We have about 33 more horsepower over the old S560, and we also have the same 9-speed automatic transmission. It's a conventional torque converter automatic. Anytime you are trying to pass, you're reminded that this is the flagship of the Mercedes-Benz lineup. We've got plenty of smooth power, and the transmission is pretty responsive and smooth. And we've got the Airmatics air suspension, which means even though we're riding on these 20-inch wheels, the ride quality is really comfortable. It soaks up the bumps really nicely. Mercedes says they'll offer their E-active body control suspension at a later date. That's the one that does the little dance on the SUVs. It won't do it on the S-Class. Mercedes says it doesn't have any need to put it on a sedan because that's supposedly to help you get unstuck if you're off-roading. The S-Class drives very nicely. I mean, with the new 4-wheel steering system, it really gives this car a nimbleness that the old one didn't quite have. And this is still a really heavy car. It's almost 5,000 pounds, yet it accelerates very quickly. The steering in this car is really sharp. Now, I'm not going to give you guys the Alex's report card, because he's going to actually do that when he gets this car back in his home area for a week. But I will tell you that if you guys are looking for a confident, comfortable, yet also, you know, somewhat sporty ride, even though this isn't a full-on AMG model, the S-Class definitely has that feeling to it. It also has incredibly good visibility all around. All of the Mercedes-Benz driver assistance tech is on this particular one because it's the executive line. But Mercedes says that their system is still a hands-on system. It is level 2, but they are working on a level 3 system that's available in Europe, not quite yet available in the States. So you're still required to keep your hands on the wheel, but the system will change lanes for you. It kind of gives you a traffic jam assist feature. It'll follow the car in front of you to a complete stop, and it'll stay in the lanes pretty well for you. The one thing that I'll be curious to see what Alex thinks when he actually gets behind the wheel are the seats. I like the pillow that's on the back here, although I had to kind of play with the adjustment to get it right. In the rear seat, the pillow is a lot more comfortable, but you know, these seats in general are the upgraded full Nappa leather. They're heated and cooled. The massaging feature works great. And this car has a lot of room. Now, keep in mind, I'm not quite as tall as Alex. Alex is around 5 inches taller than me. But I did talk to a couple of journalists here, especially one that's 6'7", and he finds plenty of room in this vehicle. So, you know, you still have that S-Class, you know, stately image on the outside, but you get all this room and comfort on the inside. But I will say that the tech has a very strong learning curve, and even though I've been in this car for the last couple of hours, I still need to spend a few more days with it to really get used to all the tech and how it works. The 3D gauges here look pretty cool actually from the driver's seat, but if you try to look at it from the passenger seat, you're not going to be able to tell. It actually looks a little blurry. The augmented reality head-up display is also an industry first, and it does a really good job of overlaying, you know, directions when you have the GPS up, and it looks really great when you guys have the driver assistance features on, because it actually will project which direction you want to go far out into the windshield. It almost makes it look like the entire windshield is a screen, and that's definitely going to be a wow factor. I mean, when you drive an S-Class, you expect a certain wow factor, and this new one definitely delivers on that. Now, last year, Mercedes-Benz managed to sell a little over 6,600 units of S-Class models here in America, which makes it the best-selling large executive luxury sedan. Despite everyone's insatiable appetite for SUVs, this was still a pretty strong seller, although sales were kind of cut in half versus 2019. You can blame the coronavirus pandemic for that. Now, of course, after spending the day driving the new S-Class, what do I think about this car? Well, I really love the technology and the luxury of this vehicle. I think Mercedes has really killed it in terms of offering a lot of new tech features that we haven't seen in the industry. It still has a crap ton of space on the inside, a large back seat, a lot of features in the back seat, and also a relatively roomy trunk by sedan standards. But really, the S-Class holds a lot of loyal buyers in this segment because of how it makes you feel. When you drive this car out on the road, it just feels special. In fact, if you guys can remember, the S-Class name comes from the German word special, and that's exactly why Mercedes named this vehicle that back in 1972. Now, speaking of which, if you guys are interested in purchasing this new S-Class, they're heading to dealers right now, and they start at around $110,000 for the base S500, which now comes with 4MATIC. That's about $15,000 more versus the previous generation model. However, it is noted that this car comes with a lot more standard equipment and a lot more horsepower. The S580 is the V8 model. That starts at around $118,000, which is around $9,000 more expensive than the previous generation, but again, a lot more equipment. This particular one that I'm showing you here, with all the options in the rear seat executive package, the upgraded paint, the upgraded wheels, the aerobatic suspension, the augmented reality, and the GPS system, stickers for around $147,800. So nearly $150,000 for an S-Class is still a lot of money, even by vehicles in this segment. But you can't really argue with the formula that Mercedes delivers with the new S-Class, with all the technology, all the luxury, and all of the opulence that this car continues to offer, and it's going to continue to do so as we go into this all-new W223 generation. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed me standing in for Alex. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you guys think right there in the comment section below. And if you guys haven't seen my video on the car, be sure to visit Redline Review's YouTube channel, where I also did a full review on the new S-Class. But until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. That's how Alex will usually get in. He'll kind of get in, and then he'll hit the close button.